What's going on, everybody? Happy Saturday afternoon. Today is the day of days in Cincinnati basketball. Welcome to the at-large bid 2021 Skyline Chili Crosstown Shootout preview show. Very excited for this. Taylor, nothing else in college basketball really matters today. My Notre Dame Fighting Irish are hosting the Kentucky Wildcats. They're going to get slaughtered. My Chicago Bulls are hosting the Miami Heat. Actually, they're in Miami. They're going to lose. I don't care. It's Crosstown Shootout Day. It's a beautiful day. I love it here. So stoked. Nothing like Cincinnati Xavier right before the holidays.
Right, man. Kind of exactly what you said. If you're a UC football fan, it doesn't matter right now. If you're any other fan, tonight at 8:30 in the Cintas Arena, there's one game that matters that will have the reputation for another year. And Xavier's been on the winning side for a while now, so they're looking to continue their hot streak of talking a lot of crap to UC fans. So.
Yeah, it's been certainly a lot of fun to kind of watch everything going on with these teams. I know it's been obviously a really interesting year so far for both squads, and we're going to talk just about basically everything throughout the game today. We'll have it for about an hour and a half, depending how long this goes. So if you have any comments, if you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, let us know. We'll bring it on. We'll discuss it here on the pod. I guess this isn't a pod. This is a stream. I'm so used to saying pod, but
Right.
I want to start with just talking about some of the memories of this game. Obviously, the first thing everyone thinks of is the fight. I'm not going there. I don't care about the fight. We're over it.
10 years ago yesterday.
10 years ago yesterday, the same day, Indiana beats Kentucky on a buzzer beater.
What game was first? Was it UC Xavier?
Xavier was in the afternoon, and then that game was at night.
Talk about a great day of sports.
Yeah, memorable day for sure. I was like, say Christian Wofford hits the shot against Kentucky when they're number one in the country. That's the Anthony Davis team.
Yeah, they won a lot. It's the only loss they had that year.
Yeah. Well, they lost in the SEC championship.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's obviously that. There's the weird ass couple years where they said we had to take it off campus because of the fight. And played it at US Bank Arena.
The worst arena.
Yes.
In North America. I don't care. That's the worst arena in the world.
Yes, it is. They called it the Crosstown Classic for a couple of years. They had a big press conference to that. So, you could tell. And Mo Egger was on that documentary that was on FS1 this week. That's on the Big East YouTube channel. If you guys get a chance to check it out. And he said the only people that were really hurt by that were the fans. Like Xavier UC, they'll play that. They'll play that in the park. Like they don't care. So. Kind of just real quick, want to get into some of our favorite memories. I think for me, both sides obviously have great moments in here. One of the biggest ones for me is obviously Lenny Brown. UC being number one in the country, hosting the Musketeers, and Lenny Brown hits the floater at the buzzer to beat them, which leads to my friend Andy McWilliams' excellent quote of the Cincinnati Bearcats are number one in the country and number two in their own city. Just a perfect line. Nothing will ever be better than that.
Oh, and it stung because obviously you see the rest of the year they have to worry about that. I mean, that call is played every year. I'm sure it was in the documentary that they showed, but it's an all-time moment. It's kind of reminds me of the Austin Rivers shot against North Carolina. It's just one of those that it's going to be around forever. And every time you hear it or see it, it's going to inflict some pain on you if you're a fan of the Bearcats. So, yeah, I mean, rivalry games. Sometimes. I remember a couple years ago in North Carolina, not to, take away from the rivalry, whatnot, or anything, but Carolina, when they had Cole Anthony, they were not a tournament team, and it was a game in Chapel Hill. Sometimes that's a desperate team or a team that, that can't win that year. They're looking to win their rivalry game because that's probably the only thing that they're going to get this year. So I don't think either of these teams today are in that spot because I think both are having solid starts to the year. Xavier more often, kind of living up to their true potential. But yeah, it shows the rivalry game matters. I mean, fans, players, coaches, they all get hyped for it. Steele always goes out and buys with Dana Gardens when they win. So I don't know if the bar is ready for that again tonight, but I'm excited.
I asked him about that. He said, I asked if they plan to go to Dana tonight if they win. He said, I don't want to put the wagon before the horse, but I look forward to making that trip.
I love coaches so much. They just they say the same cliche things every time, and it's awesome. But yeah. Big day. City should be rocking. 8:30 tip. It gives you plenty of time to get some beverages in you to get rowdy. So I know you said you're heading over there early, so I'm excited to see the footage and stuff you're gonna be putting out. So
yeah, I'm really excited just to kind of see the fan base. I think one of the UC does the thing every year. They do the protect Oscar because they don't want someone to put a Xavier jersey on the Oscar Robertson statue outside the shoe, which I always appreciate. I think that's fun. And then on the other end, the Xavier fan base also camps out because students are first come first serve for tickets. So it's the line is always wrapped around the arena when we get there. The fan base is awesome. I think it's another whiteout actually. So if but it looks like they're handing out some of the towels tonight. So that's going to be neat to see, just kind of that and the electricity. The student section at Cintas Center, there's nothing like it. On the other end, I think one of my other favorite moments in this was actually just a couple years ago. I don't know if you remember. It was the last game at the Shoe before they renovated. Xavier goes in there. This is when they're they're 10th in the country in the preseason poll. Edmund Sumner's on that team. He ends up playing the NBA for a while, obviously. But Trayvon Blewett goes into fifth third, drops 40, and Cincinnati still wins. That game was just so fun back and forth. Mick and Mac just going at it, chess match. And but that's like one of those all times that I'll just never forget, man.
Yeah, I'm with you. That game is. I remember watching it vividly. It's just that was a classic. Like he's the Trayvon Blue's out there. He's hot. I'm sure Mick Cronin in the huddle was just like, let him get his. Just don't let anybody else score. Because I mean, it wasn't like he was taking bad shots. He was taking everything in rhythm. He was just throwing up everything, and it was just falling in. Big night for him, obviously, in that game. And it's crazy to think about because that's a memory that he's gonna, look fondly on. Of like, hey, I remember I dropped 40 in the last game at the Shoe, but they lost. So like, it's one of those like how much does he really like remember and appreciate that game when it's a loss? Because that loss hurts him more than going off in the game. That's what kind of you brought up a good point in that game that Mick and Mac were kind of going at each other all game. Like I like Travis Steele. I obviously love Wes Miller. I've been very adamant on. I love the hire of him at Cincinnati, and I think he's a great X's and O's coach, very young coach. But the intensity, like Mac Travis Steele and Wes Miller don't have any negative
never crossed paths
with
what Travis said yesterday.
They don't hate each other. Like the intensity tonight, I'm sure that if in the heat of the moment they might yip and yap at each other, but there's no ill will. But with Chris Mack and Mick Cronin, there felt like there was some I wouldn't say there felt like there was some built up animosity between them. Mick Cronin, just the ultimate both sides, right? Like if you're a UC fan, you just despise Chris Mack and the certain things that he does you didn't like. And then obviously if you're a Xavier fan, Mick Cronin, he gives you a lot of free ammunition just to kind of to unload the clip on him. So that kind of leads to, what you asked. One of my favorite memories was the JP McCura Mick Cronin moment. Like
I should have remembered that.
Unbelievable, man. Where he's like, I got an 18-year-old kid telling me F you in the line. And then JP McCura saying that Mick tried to fight him in the handshake line. It's just like, that's Cincinnati Xavier rivalry. Like Mick Cronin, the Cincinnati boy, like just a diehard UC fan, obviously from his time there, but he just absolutely lost his cool for about 20 minutes. And then the press conference, like I don't know, man. Mick, I'm more fond of Mick Cronin probably than others. I think he's a phenomenal coach. I think he's a great WWE heel. Right. I think he's a heel that like just knows his role and like plays it really well. But that trying to fight a player, let alone not a coach, is unbelievable. Because you've seen coaches fight, you've seen them go after each other and say things, but I don't think I've ever seen a coach, he's like, and I love how he wouldn't name him in the press conference. He was like, who are you talking about? He's like, you know who he is. He's like, he can come see me if he wants it.
That was Shannon Russell that asked him that. My good friend Shannon Russell.
Yeah. What are we doing here? That's unbelievable. So
yeah. I remember actually, so kind of going not to, it was talked about in the documentary. Going back to the fight, the presser when so both coaches had the presser afterwards, obviously, and Mick was like, Mick was awesome. He was like, I don't even know who's going to be on my team tomorrow. I'm going to meet with my president and my administrators, and we're going to talk about it. And he's like, those guys don't even have their jerseys on. It's like, I took some of their jerseys off myself. And he's like, and as he leaves,
and I believe
presser,
him.
I do too.
I believe he did. He was in there. Hell.
And as he leaves the presser, he gets a standing ovation from the media, which you've been in media rooms, you don't do that. Like that's not how that goes. So they talked about that a little bit with Shannon Russell actually on the documentary. It's on there that I keep referencing. I think the one thing I want to touch on before we kind of get into the teams, kind of just talking about this. So you and I both are lucky enough that we've been credentialed to cover this game. You covered it last year at Fifth Third Arena, which I know is a little different because it was obviously during the year of COVID. It was really weird. Like Cincinnati was just playing their second game of the year. Xavier was playing their sixth. And the year before, was the first time I covered. I've been there in the stands as a fan, which is also fun to do. But last when I covered it at Cintas last time, they literally ran out of like media spots. So they're like, Tim, I'm really sorry. We got to put you with the crowd tonight. And I was like, what? This is awesome. Yeah. So like, I just sat there with the people, just like took it all in. Like I was still tweeting updates and stuff, like doing what I do for my post-game report. But I was like, this is great. Like just being around the fan base is so cool. But like for you, I was curious because we talked about it obviously off the air. We texted about it. But when you were there last year with no fans and only family allowed in, like, could you remember like the yaps and the chatter between the teams and like the coaches and everything like that?
So yeah, I've been to three Crosstown shootouts, two as a fan, one at UC, one at Xavier, and then I've been to, like you said, last year covered the game at Fifth Third Arena. And the one thing I remember when I walked in was the pumped in crowd noise because it was loud, like in shoot around, and I was like, "What the hell is this noise that they're just feeding into me?" But yeah, it was
so terrible.
It was very weird. Like UC fans were in the section where they run out of there, the closest to the media, which is like opposite of the student section. A lot of UC fans were there. Then there was a split, and then there was Xavier fans on the other side, and then like I guess other people on. I don't know. I guess they spread them out evenly, but it was 4 or 5 rows in between people. Very quiet. You could hear on the court a lot of the players, like you could hear the coaches, yelling out plays, or players communicating through the game. But the one thing I took out was Paul Scruggs last year. He was dominant in that win, just kind of all over the place, offensive, defensively. He was talking mass shit the entire game. Like just obviously, I mean, we were very close to the court, but just getting in people's jock straps, riding them up and down the court, like playing great defense, just all over him the entire game. He's a guy that that was his senior year that he didn't think he was going to get another chance at the Crosstown because that was before they really issued the COVID year or the 6th year, whatever you want, or 5th year, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, he was very adamant, very emotional, very kind of on high alert there that game. Adam Kunkel came in. That was one of the big debut games.
That was his debut,
yeah. Yeah, he came in, hit 2 or 3 big threes, and a local kid around here is always nice to see him play well, especially in a big rivalry. But yeah, I mean, it definitely missed the fans. Obviously, you're gonna miss that, and I think we've seen that this year already in college basketball. How much more like relaxing and how much more like it feels like old college basketball again compared to last year, where it was games were getting canceled or games you played with 1,000 people in the stands. But very excited for tonight at Cintas to see it rocking. I know you'll be hyped up the entire time. But last year, I would say it was a good experience. I had more fun at both UC and at Xavier when I went as a fan, but still enjoy our time when we get to cover and call games. I was lucky enough to be one of the few people that were there last year, so I'm not going to be too spoiled on my opinion on the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's get into it, man. Let's talk about the teams. Let's start with Xavier here. If you can see here on the screen, so they're 8-1 right now in the year. Pretty high ranked on Ken Pom in the net and RPI. They did crack the coaches poll at 1 point this season, right before they went to Brooklyn and lost to Iowa State, who ended up winning the preseason NIT.
And that loss doesn't look as bad now.
No, not at all. I mean,
they're good. I don't understand how I was so off on them. They're good. Like, a really good team.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. So notable wins, obviously, in the Gavitt games this year. They beat Ohio State by 71-65. That game was awesome. I was covering that game. I was up in the 200s at the Cintas, and when Paul Scruggs dunked on EJ Liddell, that was just an incredible moment. So just kind of something there. And then in the preseason night, when they lost to Iowa State, they ended up playing Virginia Tech the next day and got that win. And then, of course, I forgot to put it on there, but they last week went to Oklahoma State and won. So Xavier is one of 2 teams in the country with 3 quadrant 1 victories right now in the season, with the number 1 team in the country. Well, soon to not be number 1 team in the country, Purdue Boilermakers. So you talked about it. They're a good basketball team. They have everything just about, seems like, at times. They still struggle with some certain things, which we'll get to a little later. But what do you like about this Xavier team when you kind of see them on the court?
Yeah, I think the depth they have at multiple positions. But I'll kind of even backtrack before then. This was a huge year for Travis Steele.
Yeah.
He's had talented teams in the past. That last year they didn't make the tournament. 2 years ago, they lost you were there, right? Opening night of the Big East tournament. Lost to DePaul.
Yep, I was there.
Yeah, right before the world got
the
shut
last
down.
basketball game that would finish in its entirety, I covered.
A nice little fact to have there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they were a bubble team then, lost last year, kind of wilted away at the end. But like I said, last year's such an anomaly, but they had the talent to go to the tournament last year, didn't end up making it. This year was a huge year for him. For a lot of people had him on the hot seat if they didn't perform up to expectations. But I think this team is deep at guards. You got Colby Jones, Paul Scruggs. Your wings, you got Kunkel, Nate Johnson, Devon Odom. Like you got guys that can just absolutely fill it up for you. And then your big man depth, like you bring in Deontay Miles, who is a project kid from Walton Verona, where I went to school. A kid that you bring in as a freshman, you redshirt him, you help put on some muscle for him, and he plays up to his potential, and he's providing like big minutes for Xavier. And then you bring in Jack Nungy from Iowa, a 7-footer that can space the floor, really good rebounder, shot blocker, like very good. And then you bring back a guy that looks phenomenal right back in his return, Zach Fremantle, Big Frosty. Was it 24 points the other game?
Yeah, 24 points against Ball State the other night.
Yeah, I mean, the kid, when he's in the zone, that worries me if you're a UC fan, how good he looks so early. I think if you're a UC fan looking how you're going to win tonight, you kind of look for a bad game from him. But I think this team's legit, man. Nate Johnson can really just stretch it out. Like, if you're not going to like stop him. You can just only hope to contain him. I know that sounds cliche, but like he's going to get his. If Adam Kunkel gets hot, the guy that's already shot and made 8 threes against Norfolk State earlier this year, I think like Xavier, they can kind of have their way with you. And they have the best player on the court in Colby Jones. Like, just the best player. So a guy that is NBA level good, elite size, really good handling with the ball, can score at will at the rim, finish at will. So he can drive in the paint. And if you collapse, he's kicking out to one of those shooters on the wing and Kunkel or Johnson. And I don't see a way that, you can really kind of contain this offense. Now, on the other hand, Xavier has kind of played down to their competition. There has been some times where the game against Niagara, the Iowa State game, like I said, that looks better now. But I think Xavier sometimes plays down to their competition, which would be a good thing if you're a UC fan. You can't match their talent right now, especially year one in Wes Miller's era, just because he had to fill the roster a little bit late, especially after the John Brandon debacle. But I think the Xavier team set up well for long-term success in the Big East because a lot of those games are wars, and the NCAA tournament. Not trying to look too far ahead, but NCAA tournament, it's nice to have 4 or 5 different options on offense that can score because there's going to be a couple games where your stars just don't have it, and that's what makes the good teams elite when they can move on like that.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm not just saying this as someone who grew up rooting for Xavier, but just as an analyst who covers basketball, I really think that they are potentially a top 15 team in the country. I think that they have just everything you need for. They do get a lot of costly turnovers, which we'll get to a little later in the day. But the things that they put together and the way that they can just when they get hot and they get rolling, the way that they can just beat you is pretty fascinating to watch as far as just being a basketball fan. And defensively, they're really good. So this is a team that I really I think could really, like you mentioned, you said, you don't just expect Xavier to make the tournament just because they haven't made it the last few years. You expect them to be there for a little while. And I certainly think this team has everything to be there for a little while.
Yeah, definitely. NCAA tournament's a crazy thing. Big East tournament, Big East play. There's going to be a week where Xavier goes 1-1. They're going to lose a game early to, I don't even want to, I don't know, a bottom tier Big East team that's struggling. And then they're going to have a huge matchup on Saturday that they'll probably win. It's just conference play is a war. You just got to get through it. Try to win as many games as you can. The road games are tough. That's why you got to defend your home turf. And this is a game that, even a non-conference game, defending your home turf against Cincinnati, a rivalry game, a team that, is looking like a NCAA tournament bubble team / tournament team. This is a game you take care of business to continue to boost through that resume. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's kind of go through real quick. This is kind of a highlight of what the Xavier starting lineup will look like. So like we mentioned, Paul Scruggs, the senior guard, which we'll talk about him on the next slide a little bit. This is Paul's 5th Crosstown Shootout, which was really funny the other night in the press conference. We had a moment where my guy Adam Baum asked Paul Scruggs about, this is your 5th one, and Zach Fremantle went, "Damn, man, you're old as hell."
Right, I saw that. He's catching strays from his teammate. It's something you don't like to see there.
Yeah. So Paul Scruggs is the starting point guard. They use Colby Jones, who Taylor talked about earlier. Colby is actually, as a guard, one of the top 10 players in the country in offensive rebounds per game. You can see there he's averaging a near double-double. Is also becoming a really good playmaker. I could blush about Colby Jones for hours. But we only have you guys for at least an hour and a half at the maximum. So Nate Johnson, the Gardner-Webb transfer, playing in his second Crosstown Shootout, shooting 50% from three, has shown to be a diehard Harry Potter fan, which keep an eye on that. We got something clicking on that. But Nate Johnson, one of the best shooters in the country. Last year was actually leading the country in three-point percentage before he got injured and was out the rest of the year. Was really when Xavier kind of took their downfall last season, like you mentioned earlier. Jerome Hunter, the Indiana transfer, who is really getting more aggressive, and that's great news for Xavier because he's a guy that likes to settle at times for threes, but when he does get aggressive and gets hot, gets to the rim, he's nearly unstoppable. Jerome, for people who don't know about Jerome Hunter, like I said, Indiana transfer, was the 60th rated recruit in the country in the same class as Zion Williamson, RJ Barrett, and Kobe White. So he was amongst, the top tier of high school players that year. And then Deontay Miles, who Taylor talked about a second ago, Walton Verona kid. It's a sophomore redshirt year. The stats don't jump out a whole lot, obviously, but where Deontay Miles is really good is ball screen defense. He does not let people get by him. I talked about it a couple weeks ago when they played Kent State. Sincere Carey, who's a really fast guard for the Golden Eagles. That's not their name. Clashes, Golden Flashes. Thank you, Taylor. I knew your college basketball knowledge would come in today. Carey's a guy that gets around everybody. He could not get around Miles. Miles is 7 foot, 6'11", same thing. And obviously, a guy who, when he plays physical, is really good. Xavier's just looking for him to be a little bit more physical. And then obviously here at the side, you see Travis Steele looking for his third win in the Crosstown Shootout and his third in a row. So what do you when you look at this starting five, it kind of goes back to the thing we talked about. They got a little bit of everything. Obviously the guard play between Jones, Johnson, and Scruggs, I think alone can take Xavier far.
Yeah. I have kind of a complaint / I wouldn't say complaint. I wish Xavier would put more Kobe Jones in more ball screens. A lot of time they've had Paul Scruggs bring the ball up and have him facilitate the offense. I get it. He's a fifth-year senior, 4 assists a game, 11 points a game, roughly around that. But I think Kobe's so dynamic when he's got the ball in his hands, where all the screens he can find teammates. He can drive and kick to Nate Johnson, to Adam Kunkel, to Jerome Hunter. I think his decision making, just because he's a little bit more athletic, is better than Paul's. But I still am confident and fine with Paul Scruggs having the ball in his hands. You kind of hit on what I was mentioning with the starters. Jerome Hunter becoming more aggressive is exactly what you want to see. A guy that's a tenacious finisher through contact. He can get to the rim, pretty good foul shooter. He can get to the line a lot. The 3-point percentage has not been there, and I don't know if maybe that's coaching being like, hey, man, we don't need you out here taking threes. We have guys that we have designated sets for. But I think he's aggressive enough to, if he can start finishing at the rim, that's only going to allow the defense to collapse in the paint. And that's more wide open looks for Colby, to Nate, to Adam, to Paul, like guys that, are a little bit better perimeter shooters. You kind of mentioned it, off stream here. We don't know if Deontay is going to start again tonight. I still think whatever he brings is valuable minutes to the team, maybe in a reserve role now that Fremantle's back. I probably expect to see him starting tonight, but I love what Deontay does. Like you said, stats don't show it 100%, but I think a lot of a stat that's not tracked is, how many shots that he alters, or, shot quality. There's websites that you can go on and watch how many, the certain amount of shots that these teams take. I think he takes up a very big portion of, he's altering a lot of shots, resulting in kickouts to long threes, because they can't just really move around him in the paint. So,
yeah,
and for Steele, 60 and 40 is a little bit surprising. I kind of thought it was worse than that, to just being frankly honest. I think he gets a bad rap just because Xavier has had the tutelage and the success of being we're going to promote from within, and every coach that they promoted from within has been pretty damn good. Mata, Miller, Mack, it kind of just continues. And I think Steele, with a year like this, is a perfect year in his fourth year, to right the ship and kind of continue the greatness that Xavier's had in coaching.
Yeah, I forgot to mention this earlier, but I looked at at the beginning of the year, ESPN did a top college basketball coaches under the age of 40. Number 1 and number 2 were Travis Steele and Wes Miller.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So here we got this. I mentioned it earlier. This history is on the line tonight for Paul Scruggs. We've been trying to get 100% confirmation, but everything kind of points to this. So this is a 99.95% accurate fact. Is that if Xavier is victorious tonight, Paul Scruggs will be the first Xavier basketball player in history to win 4 Crosstown Shootouts. So Paul Scruggs' legacy at Xavier is obviously the guy that stayed. He's probably not going to catch Byron Larkin and Trayvon Blewett in career points because he's scored half of what they've scored in their careers. But I think it's going to go down as an all-time fan favorite for the Musketeers. I shouldn't say I think. I know he will. He's just been tremendous. I think so too. Yeah, he's tremendous. He's one of the best point guards in the country. And for him, you talked about it last year when there was no fans, you could hear all the shit he was talking. He's very adamant and very proud of when he beat Cincinnati last year, letting them know it's my city. And that's coming from a guy who's from Indianapolis saying this Cincinnati is his city. So Paul Scruggs never doesn't show up for big games. His stat line may not always be the best, but you look at what he did down the stretch in the Ohio State game, and playing sick in the Virginia Tech game and still helping Xavier win with Nate Johnson scoring 31 of their 59 points. Paul Scruggs is a gamer, and there's when he's gone, this is last year, we get to watch him in person. I hope he gets a chance to get some play some pro ball. There won't be another like him at Xavier.
He's a McDonald's All-American, right?
Yeah, he was the 37th recruit in the country that year.
Guy's just a winner, and that's an intangible thing you cannot teach. A guy that's looking for his 4th Crosstown Shootout win, makes the winning plays last year. Look at the Ohio State game, just the absolute poster that he put EJ Liddell on at the end of the game. Just a guy's in the right spot at the right time, and you can say it's luck, and you can say it's this and that, but at the same time, if it happens over and over and over again, it's intangible things that you cannot teach, and I think that's what Paul Scruggs is the best way to describe him. I think he's a winner. Hope to see him make a tournament run this year. Hope to see that closes the Xavier chapter for his life out nicely. But I think senior day will be a nice day for him that fans will truly be able to kind of appreciate the greatness that he gave over the year when talent wasn't as good as years previous.
Yeah, because the year he lost was the Travis Steele's first year. They had just lost Blewett. They had just lost McCura. So they were kind of scrambling to kind of make some wins happen. Najee Marshall really struggled that game. But yeah, so since then, Scruggs has been really, really dominant. He's had some great teammates over the years. I mean, I just mentioned Najee Marshall's Crosstown Shootout performance is one of my all-time favorites when he scored 31 and held Jaron Cumberland to like 11, but he didn't shoot well at all.
Right.
That was John Brandon's first Crosstown. That's the head coach. So yeah, man, this is gonna be this Villanova and senior night. Those are probably gonna be the nights of Paul Scruggs where he can really solidify his Xavier legacy. He's already gonna be an all-time great. I don't know if they'll put his number on the rafters, but I do think as someone who's followed this program for a long time, if there is anyone that does deserve it, it's him.
Yeah, it's like a Marcus Page for North Carolina, a guy that came in, put his dues in, played hard every week. Fans love him, media loves him. Just overall good guy. Hope to see it end well for him. Hopefully, he'll be the first player to win 4 in a row. Be kind of a cool stat to have over a lot of the Xavier alums.
Yeah. So here's some of the rotation guys for the Musketeers. We talked about a few of these guys earlier. Zach Fremantle, just about to play his 4th game. There's a very good possibility he could be starting tonight. We won't know probably till about 8 o'clock. Junior, 9 points a game, 3.3 rebounds. First team All Big East preseason this year. Jack Nungy, an Iowa transfer, who's putting in off the bench 11 and 7 a game. Really, really talented guy. Then Adam Kunkel, the Belmont transfer, the Cooper High School native from Northern Kentucky. It can be a microwave. Is really, really developed as a playmaker. He's become such a good passer in his time at Xavier. Also, I've noticed how impressive his defensive instincts are. There's multiple times this year I've seen when he's getting back and like a 2-for-1, and he still manages to get a steal. It's pretty impressive. And then, of course, Dwan Odom, who is really good at basketball, but might be playing the wrong sport because that guy gets to the rim like he is a running back.
Oh, yeah.
He's awesome. Yeah, so good. And he's becoming, last against Ball State, he had his career high 6 assists game. So these guys plus the starters will give Xavier a really, really talented, nice rotation that they're very proud of.
Yeah, and this is where I lean the edge in the game overall. I think Xavier still has the better starting 5 compared to Cincinnati, but Xavier's bench is night and day ahead of what Cincinnati can bring off the bench. And I think that just allows Steele to be like, hey, we're going to run. I'm just going to do like hockey substitutions, just get guys in and out, and they're not going to have an answer for us. Nungy's been great. I was very high on him when he decided to transfer from Iowa. Fremantle was more of a starter we kind of hit on earlier, but Adam and Dwan are 2 guys that you just need to, they know their role. They come in, heat up like a microwave, score at bunches, Adams, like you said, mentioned very good defensively, knows when to shoot the gap in the passing lane to kind of get steals, knows when to be conservative to not allow, easy backdoor layups or score in transition. Um, I think this, like I said, this Xavier bench, phenomenal. I think Steele has a loaded roster that I could go on and on about, but I think if you're a Xavier fan, you're pretty happy with the production getting off the bench and who you can bring, the interchangeable pieces that you can sub in and out.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm very excited for this team. I think that they have a lot to bring to the table. So let's kind of go real quick streams real quick. We talked a lot about the Musketeers. Let me find where I'm at here. All right. So that brings us to the opponents, obviously, of the American Athletic Conference for a short period of time, and that is the Cincinnati Bearcats. UC so far has definitely far outperformed expectations. I think that's very rational to say. They are 7-2. They did kind of get a lot of bye games to kind of build wins and kind of build their chemistry together as a team. But I mean, started the year in the 130s on KenPom. They're 69th right now as of yesterday, 40th in the net, 54th in RPI. Yet to kind of crack the AP or coaches poll. I think they're still a ways away from that. But they went into Kansas City and had an awesome showing. They beat Illinois and Kofi Coburn's first game of the season by 20. Taylor did an excellent write-up on 48minutesnetwork.com. You can check out if you want to relive that game. And then the next night, they lost to Arkansas, who's one of the top 10 teams in the country, but they played great.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't put good losses on here because I'd be insulting to Wes Miller because he's so competitive. When he went into that presser after the game, he was like, I love my team, but I'm pissed off we lost. He didn't care that it was close. He didn't care that they fought hard. I mean, he did, but he was more looking at like, we lost that game. And so, but this Bearcats team, they've got a lot of guys. We'll kind of get to the roster here in just a second. But when you look at this team so far, what do you like about what Wes Miller's been able to do his first year?
So the biggest thing is the roster fluidity that he had when he took the job. He convinced Mikey Saunders, is it Mason
Madsen
to come back. Jeremiah Davenport was kind of staying regardless, but really honed in the team as a team environment. With the John Brandon departure, we both thought that would be a better hire than it turned out being. Sometimes you just can't see how some of these things are going to play out, and fortunately, that's one of those situations. But I think Wes has built a culture, and that's a word that's very cliche and even kind of cringe to say, but like has built an identity for the team inside and outside of the locker room. And I think they've come together and have bought back in as over, like, these kids came in together as recruits, so it's pretty easy to get them to buy back in, being like, hey man, like, you started this ride together. It's a little bumpy, but like, it's going to smooth out and there's going to be better times ahead. But Wes has been a guy that likes to get out and transition and run, but he's not opposed to playing different styles of basketball. I've watched plenty of his games at UNC Greensboro. If they're playing a team that's more athletic than them, they will slow it down and they will, they'll try to make it ugly, kind of classic UC basketball, Mick Kernan era. But they can get out and run too. I mean, the Illinois game, they took it to Illinois. It wasn't like they squeaked. Like, that was a dominant win against a team that is a good, I wouldn't say national title contender, but a good Big East team or Big Ten team and arguably the best conference. I think. And then the Arkansas game, Arkansas's got plenty of guards. Stanley Umede, Chris Likes, just a team full of elite prospects that, UC can't really match up to on a athletic level. That they hung around in that game. Ended up losing. They ended up not covering because West fouled like down 4 with like 5 seconds left. And absolutely got a bone to pick with them on that one. But I mean, you can see it behind me, the Carolina flags, the banners. I have no ill will bias, but like I obviously big Wes Miller fan. Love the hire of him. I think it's a great hire. It's going to set Cincinnati up long-term future success, especially as they get towards the Big 12. Offensively, I think he's just kind of doing with what he has. I don't think he truly has guys there that can run his system yet. But Mikey Saunders is a nice spark plug off the bench. David DeJulius, a guy that, had to step away last year due to some mental health issues. Glad to see him back out there playing well. The former Michigan transfer. I think Michigan would rather have him than the guards that they have right now.
Probably,
I think it's a guy that, he not going to do a lot to wow you on the court, but he does the right plays often or not that have his team looking for the right success. Jeremiah Davenport, a guy that, 6'8", 6'9". I don't know if he does one thing truly well, but I think he's just an overall solid player that can find big minutes for a nice program like Cincinnati. But this team's going to only continue to get better throughout the year. I mean, they're already performing better than I thought they would. 69 in KenPom, 40 in the net, 54 in RPI. But big test for them tonight. Wes Miller's getting his first taste of the UC Xavier Crosstown Shootout. Excited to see him. I saw him wearing the Skyline Chili Roshis and doing the promo, I guess we're going to call it, the shoot at Skyline. So glad to see he's getting well adjusted to Cincinnati lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited about Wes. I just think that this team, look, this isn't meant to in any way, shape, or form be insulting about what I think their ceiling could be, just because of what they had to overcome, putting their roster together in like a few weeks because of everything that was going on with the termination of John Brannon and then moving on to Wes Miller and getting him situated. But if this Bearcats team makes the NIT, which I think they will, that's a success. I mean, they very well could sneak into the NCAA tournament. That Illinois win, if Illinois gets hot, that could really carry them up to get some quadrant 1, quadrant 2 victories. Right now, it says it's a Q1, so that's big. And they're going to have some opportunities. They're going to play, like tonight. They win tonight. That's a Q1 win for them. That's a huge Q1 win for them. They play Memphis. Memphis might be struggling right now, but that is a team that everyone keeps their eyes on. And the committee is going to watch that game to see how they go with that much talent. Even though Memphis isn't winning basketball games, they still have NBA players on the court. So, you're going to have 2 chances at that. You're going to have 2 chances at Houston, who just played in the Final Four. So they're going to have their opportunities, and I think they're going to be competitive in all those games. Let's go ahead here and let's talk about some of the starters. So if you want to kind of go through this is kind of interesting. So Abdul Abdu is a transfer from Mississippi State. Last year, Abdu led the country in shot blocks per game. David DeJulius in his second year at Cincinnati, like you mentioned, the Michigan transfer. Their team's leading scorer, really creative scorer. So I really like the way he plays. John Newman, the Clemson transfer. I was going to go with West UNC Greensboro, and when West went to Cincinnati, I decided to go with them. And then the guard duo of Micah Adams-Woods and Jeremiah Davenport. These are 2 guys who have been with this Bearcats team for 3 years now. Mike Adams-Woods has really kind of taken the helm as his team's point guard and is your typical slow the offense down, get everyone set, run, and kind of leads the way. But Jeremiah Davenport, it's the heart and soul of this Bearcats team. So I do like this starting 5. I do think that they have some talent. It's just, what can they bring? Who can they rely on to score so much? Because David DeJulius is scoring 13 points a game, but his shot numbers aren't very sexy by any means.
Shot quality, I use that website a lot, and I recommend to a lot of people it's a good barometer to check out your team if you think they played well or you think they played bad. And a loss it's a humbling thing where if a game they lose, like the Carolina against Tennessee, their shot quality was over like 56%, which means the shots that they were taking were good, they just weren't falling. So it can make you frustrated that you lost because you're like, hey, we're taking good shots, we're just not making them. And then there's games like other games where it's like, man, we shot 30% good shots, we barely won. Like, we got to get better and clean that up. But I think UC is going to struggle to get the ball in transition. UC's guards are the key to this game. I think Abdu, I think Davenport, I think John Newman, I think they're physical enough defenders that can cause issues. Like, I think Newman's probably going to guard Colby. I think you put maybe Micah Adams-Woods on Nate Johnson and David DeJulius on Paul, and I think Paul's going to have a field day. I think you're just going to – I would put Cincinnati in ball screens left and right and be like, switch on us if you want. Like, we have the talent to go by you, and you're not going to be able to contain us one-on-one. But I think this UC team, they can buy in defensively. They can make the game ugly. I know that sounds horrible to watch, but that's kind of your only chance defensively. I like this team. I was higher on them. In our AAC preview, I thought there are pieces there that can gel into something. I don't know what that something becomes, but I think I was higher on them than what the dreadful year that they were looking like they were heading towards. The Julius shot selection has to get better. Davenport, the Illinois game, he got hot the second half, like crazy hot from 3, which I don't know if that's sustainable, but flash in the pan. Everybody can find that every now and then. Adu is blocking at like an 11% rate, which is he's a very good shot creator. Which this is where my initial lean. If you saw that. Our daily college basketball picks, I ended up taking, we'll get to it later, but a reason why I think UC is a decent play here is Adu and Victor Lincoln and people like that. They have gone up against size. They've played Illinois and Kofi Coburn. They have played Arkansas. They have played Monmouth with Walker Miller, albeit Zach Fremantle way better than Walker Miller and other places, and Deontay Miles and Jack Nungy both are. But, size this isn't new for Cincinnati. They've played teams with size, and I think they held their own. Adu is rebounding and, blocking things at a high rate. I think he can give Fremantle issues. The guard play is what worries me, and ultimately in college basketball and even kind of professional, if you don't have good guards, I don't see a lot of wins in your future. And I think, unfortunately, for UC fans, they're going to need a huge game out of one of Adams or DeJulius. Huge, like 20, 25 points. And if they don't get it, I don't know.
Yeah, I understand. I'm with you there, man. So Jeremiah Davenport is our focus here. I'm going to go ahead real quick and kind of discuss. For those who don't know, Jeremiah is from Muller High School, right here in the Cincinnati area. So he has been, UC home raised, played on a really good Muller High School team with just Miles Deuce McBride and Jackson Hayes, 2 NBA players. No big deal. But it was really kind of the heart and soul of this Bearcats team. You mentioned like the Illinois game really kind of got hot and carried in the victory. He's been the guy that they've been sending for media, but really has struggled since then. Missed their last game against Bryant, was injured. So, they're suspecting he's going to be 100% good to go tonight. But Jeremiah is a guy that I want to see kind of take the reins here and kind of jump and lead the way. And, when things are getting bad, I think he's the guy. He brings them together and he says, like, look, do not keep this going. Stop the bleeding here. And he's going to have to do that probably quite a bit tonight.
I'll play contrarian here. Like, I think he has the size and skill set, like offensively, to kind of give Xavier fits. Like, I don't know who Xavier's going to put on him. Maybe Paul or maybe Nate. I think he can kind of attack Nate Johnson on Nate's defensive side is not his, his best side, but I think Jeremiah is good enough to cause issues, whether that's having him at free throw line extended, pick and pop situations, or slashing in the lane. I think he's a good enough passer to get open shots for Micah and for David Julius. But yeah, I'm with you. If Cincinnati's going to win tonight, they're going to need a big game out of their best player, and I think Jeremiah is their best player. So.
Yeah. And then here's some of the rotation guys. We talked about Mikey Saunders earlier, who I freaking love watching play basketball. It's just
lightning bolt, man. He is so fast.
Yeah. Really he's getting better as a shooter too. So, I mean, the way when I did the front office news podcast the other night with JT Smith, when I talked about Mikey Saunders Jr., I compared him to playing NBA 2K with De'Aaron Fox because it's this guy who's like putting up like some decent shots that are going in, but it's so fast. And if he catches a rebound on the defensive side, he will beat three guys down the court. No issue. So I'm really high on him. Mason Madsen, who came back, like you mentioned, was, considering leaving, decided to come back and play with Wes. Victor Locken, who was injured last year with John Brandon, but getting his chance to play was just American Athletic Conference Freshman of the Week from his performance in Bryant. Really skilled, played professionally overseas. And then Odi Oguama is a Wake Forest transfer, also a really talented kid. Pretty good basketball player. They'll have him for a couple of years. So I like this rotation. I do. I just don't know how much they can throw at Xavier that they haven't seen from these guys.
I will like this rotation so much more in 2 years.
I know.
Because I think some of them will obviously be starting, but I think this rotation has pieces to it's very similar to the Mick Cronin years. Like, the early foundation is there. Like, you just got to get through the rough days. I think this team has the potential to be a very smart and good basketball team in a year and a half. So, but yes, I'm with you. The rotation, I think Victor is awesome. I think he's a guy that can also give Fremantle issues. He's able to space the floor. He's not very big, so Fremantle's going to be able to kind of bully him inside, and so would Deontay and Jack Nungy. But Victor can kind of play all around the perimeter and inside, and I think that's a skill set that not a lot of bigs have in college basketball.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. So I like this team. Let's kind of talk real quick. Here is our hey, you're getting ahead here, buddy. Our tail of the tape for both squads. We kind of see how they match up. So the shooting numbers aren't beautiful by any means, but these are two teams that score quite a bit. Xavier's a team shooting just under 46%. 34% from three, but Nate Johnson shoots 50% for three. So what's that tell you about the rest of the team? I know Travis Steele has nightmares about the fact that this team cannot consistently make free throws, that they're just at 69%, but a really good rebounding team, really good passing. They got to get that assist to turnover ratio back to within one. That's where Cincinnati's going to have a way to get back in this game and make plays is if they can get in the passing lanes and force turnovers, they're going to be able to stay in this and make it, like you said, make it ugly. On the other end, the Bearcats, they score 71.2 points per game, like I said, but very inefficiently with 42% from the floor, 29% from three, 66% from the free throw line. But have size so they can rebound, and they are a good passing team. I mean, they do make good passes. I wish they would attack the post a little more with bounce passes because I think that's a really good benefit for them. But also kind of do a good job taking care of the ball between Micah, David Julius, and Mikey Saunders, having those guys as their ball handlers.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's been fun to black out the logos and be like, which team is which? Because they're very similar. I mean, both scoring mid-70s a game, shooting around the same, big difference is 3-point percentage, especially with Xavier I think Xavier has a lot better shooters. If UC could hover around that 35-40%, I think they're going to win a lot more games. But the glaring issue is the bottom for Xavier. 15 turnovers a game. That ain't going to cut it in Big East play. Providence, DePaul, crazy. I'm saying DePaul out loud, but DePaul, Villanova, there are teams that will just absolutely take advantage of you if you turn the ball over.
St. John's even.
Yeah, right. That's a team you do not want to play, especially Villanova, because they will play in such slow possession games and they're fine with it. That if you're going to turn it over 15 times, you're just losing points. Like, especially with how good of a rebounding team Xavier is, man, get a shot up there and get the rebound. Like, it is not a hard concept to figure out. But yes, you hit it right on the head. Cincinnati's key is looking at the Xavier turnovers per game. The only way they're going to be able to stay in the game is make it ugly. The Niagara game comes to mind. The Iowa State game comes to mind. Now, albeit Xavier was down a couple guys in that game, but a game where, like, hey, man, if you can slow it down and make you value the possession every time, Xavier's going to cough it up. So if UC could be on the other end of that and kind of get in transition, I think they can score. But very similar numbers, different talent levels that they've played. But I think the free throw percentage for Xavier is something that Steele wants to be better, but that's nothing that's too concerning as of yet. So, like, I look at a team like Indiana, who shot like 6 of 14 at Wisconsin, and then like shot 6 of 19 against St. John's. That's an issue that that is costing them games. So that's something that needs to be taken care of. Hasn't cost Xavier yet, but I think it's something to monitor.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, stat lines are obviously very similar, like you said, so it makes it kind of really interesting there. And kind of real quick, want to do this here. This is the history of the Crosstown for those who don't know. Whoops. Getting used to this slides thing. Cincinnati leads the all-time series at 51-37. They also hold the longest winning streak of 12 from 56 to 67. Those are the Oscar Robertson years and guys like that. Xavier currently holds a 2-game win streak from 2019 to present, which they look to expand to 3 tonight, and has won 13 of the last 20 and I think 17 of the last 25.
Wow. It's dominant one-sided.
Yeah. There was a fight one time too.
Yeah, unbelievable video. Kenny Freese gets knocked out.
Yes.
Funny story. Yancey Gates' little brother played on one of my best friends in high school's AAU team, and we would travel. Like, I'd go to when they play the Shining Stars, local Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky team. We'd travel around and watch him play, and Yancey would be there as well. And super nice dude, just not a guy you want to get on the bad side of it, because the best part of that, Kenny Freese gets punched, falls, scurries away, crawls backwards, bloody, gets up, yells, let that LFG, and then trying to go crazy right back at the fan. I think if you go back and watch the video, Brad Redford's a guy that a friend of ours that we like to mess around with, but that video is funny because Brad's in the video like just kind of in the middle, like he's kind of like all around in the action, and just a funny video. Looking back on it, it's funny at the time, very serious, never happened, and unfortunately shined a negative light on a good rivalry. But I think it's something you look back on and end of the world. At the end of the day, it wasn't the end of the world. I think it was a unfortunate situation that it happens. But the Xavier press conference afterwards was awesome. Chris was awesome. Nick was awesome. It provides clips that will live on throughout the lifetime of the rivalry, and we're still talking about it today.
Yeah, to Holloway's classic. We have grown men over here. We were a bunch of we're thugs and they're gangsters, and we went out there and we zipped them up, and that's our motto: is we zip them up, which led to their TBT team, Zip 'em Up, which will be hosting this year a regional in the TBT. Yeah. So pretty excited for that. I think one of the cool things about this rivalry is, we did the TBT call the other day with Trayvon Blewett and Mark Lyons, and they were guys. Mark Lyons was on the team that was in that fight. I mean, he was one of the guys that kind of pushed it. And they talked a bit about, they're like, look, like, yeah, like in the lines on the court, this is personal. We want to beat them. They want to beat us. There's no love lost. He's like, but like, in the summer, like, he's like, we were buddies. He's like, I hung out with Sean Kilpatrick all the time. He's like, I'd go to campus and hang out with him in his dorm, and we'd play video games and stuff. And he was like, so it's like, it's always been really cool. It's like, yeah, in the summer we'd play against each other. The Smith League is around now, which is really like kind of like our version of the Northern Kentucky, the Drew League. And quite a few guys from both schools played in that. Sean there's obviously
McNeil, Adam Cooper, Adam Kunkel. Like, there's guys that all around the area, Jaron Cumberland, like, they get together and they're still boys.
Yeah. And then they talked about, and then Nick Rustas had this run they had for a while where they were having the open gyms at like Better Bodies and places like that. And you'd see clips of like Zach Hankins and Jaron Cumberland playing together. So it is definitely a respect thing. it's more the fan base that hates than the players. But so I do think it's kind of interesting how much it's like, yeah, he's like, yeah, we're cool. It's just we just want to win that game and that's it.
Yeah, to the fans, it's life and death. To the players, it is in the moment. But end of the day, they're kids, man. They have friends that go to different schools and friends that play on different teams. So it's nice to see that it's not truly end of the world for them.
Yeah, for sure. So I had a slide prepared for the spread on the game, but it did not show up for some reason.
Okay, let me pull up you have the latest odds pulled up?
Yeah, so I got it pulled up right here. Currently the spread for this game is that Xavier is favorited at -6.5. It went up actually since we started recording, and the over/under is at 134.5. So Taylor had reported, if you check out the Twitter account at 40 Minutes Network, he had reported that he picked Cincinnati within the 6 range, which was at the time literally 7, literally an hour ago. And so even though these teams are both really good defensively, that's still a very low over/under because, like, I don't think this is going to be like a 63-54 kind of game. I just think the way both teams can score when they're hot is going to kind of come in a factor.
Yeah, I took Cincinnati just because it's a rivalry game, and I do think if this was at a neutral place, I don't really know if there is a neutral venue that can host the Crosstown Shootout, but like I always kind of use it as like my focal point. Like if these two teams played at a neutral environment, what would be the spread? And I had it at Xavier 2 or 3. So I'm thinking, give the home court environment, really truly adding in the fans. Okay, does that inflate a little bit? And it does. I think Cincinnati's good defensively. I think they can hang around. Rivalry games, crazy things happen. Emotions, players are nervous, players are feeding off energy. Anything can happen. And I think, I think it could be a late first half pulled away for Xavier, and then hovers around that 6 to 10 point range. And that's if you're betting an underdog, that's kind of where you want to be. I don't see a way where UC truly wins unless Xavier just goes berserk from turnovers and UC starts hitting threes, which really isn't their MO offensively. But kind of portraying what you said, the over-under, I always beware of those low unders. When it's in the 130s and you think, man, hey, all we got to do is get around 30 at halftime, like both teams in the 30s and you're fine. Like they just hit a wall, especially if in a rivalry game, if it's close in the second half, there's going to be wars. There's going to be 4-minute stretches where, you're getting 4 points total. So, be leery of taking an over under. I have on KenPom right now, and they have Cincinnati, and they have Xavier winning 72-64. So that's 136. So for those listening right now, you might be able to get it in a better number, but I would stay away. If you're going to lean aside, I would go Cincinnati. I don't love it like as a lock or a mortal lock or best bet of the day or things like that. I did have that in mind, but it's more as like a volume play. I think rivalry games, that's a good number to get Cincinnati at. So overall, I kind of want to get your thoughts. I know you're a little bit more, you're unbiased, but you're a Xavier fan, whereas I'm more lean the Cincinnati side. So it's kind of nice that we have the back and forth here. But what's your take? If you had to, gun to your head, you had to pick a play here, you going the over?
I will go the over.
Yep.
I just think that the way that both teams kind of can have those moments, and especially like with Xavier alone, like is they don't gonna be necessarily shocked if they score 70 points. I don't think so. Regardless of who they're playing. So, with Nate Johnson's shooting ability, the ability they have to get to the rim, their athleticism, their length, I just think they're going to have just more opportunities to kind of make those plays happen they need. So I do kind of think the over kind of makes a lot of sense here. I think that's the best play.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll guess challenge you here with this. So I guess if before we leave, we can do final score prediction and player of the game. So don't know if you have those thoughts in your head yet, but
yeah, I do.
Okay.
So pretty similar to KenPom. I said this on the Front Office News pod last week when I visited with my guy JT. So I have to kind of keep my prediction at this point, right? I think Xavier wins. I think the score 77-71. That's my closest guess. I just think that the way that both teams can fill it up when needed is going to be necessary here, and I think both teams have an ability to have scoring droughts. So where the defenses can kind of make some plays and force some turnovers. MVP of the Crosstown Shootout this year. This will be the Nate Johnson game. He's going to be awesome. I have no doubt in my mind the way he's shooting. He's in rhythm. As the Xavier fans are saying right now, the goblet is on fire because he's a big Harry Potter guy. I like it. So I'll take Xavier 77-71. Zip them up.
Zip them up. I'll go 68-62. Xavier wins. Zach Fremantle, player of the game, 15 to 16 points.
Yeah. I like
Beers on Travis Steele at Dana Gardens.
Yes, they will. At midnight, even. Yeah. Oh, boy.
Rowdy.
Norwood police are going to be very busy.
Yeah, Norwood will be rocking, so.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Well, we wanted to do this. I know it's a little weird to do because the game's so late and it's a 12 o'clock stream, but we did notice we had some people who hopped in and, watched along. So thank you guys for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Before we get out of here, Taylor and I are both guys from the Kentucky area. Obviously, we still live here. We grew up here. So we want to make sure we send out our best wishes to the families affected by the tornadoes that came through last night. Obviously, very scary. My wife used to live in Western Kentucky. She lived in Princeton, and Princeton was one of the cities affected. So our best wishes go out to that area for sure. And also want to give a quick thanks to our team here at 48 Minutes Network. Guys like Sean Mackey, Ben Brown, Josh Hayes, Joe McCucci, Kyle Brandon, and of course our new guys, our videographers, Trent Grayson and Chris McNeil, and Parker Fields, our new writer. Without you guys putting on the effort you're putting in with us right now, we can't do a stream like this today, a Crosstown Shootout. So I can't thank you guys enough for that. But it's tonight, 8:30 p.m., Fox Sports 1. If you are not going to be in attendance, if you are going to be in attendance, I highly suggest showing up now because it's already probably wrapped around the arena. I'll be there in a couple hours. I cannot wait for tonight. It's my favorite day of the year. Thank you all. Have a good night and enjoy the game.
Peace.